Welcome to the Ultimate Sync Sessions, hosted by Amelia McCloskey and powered by Ultimate Sync Access, the ultimate platform for exploring opportunities in film, TV, gaming, and advertising. Join us as we dive into the sync world with the key players who shape the industry. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Ultimate Sync Sessions. I am super excited by the guests we have today. We are joined by Beda Senn and also Martin Haene. Welcome. How are you?
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Same to me. Great to be here.
So Beda worked as a music consultant at Swiss Television for nearly 2 decades, helping editors match music to around 600 documentary projects. Since 2018, he has produced library music under his company Tonangeber and the label Motif Works, specializing in modern modular motive-based production music. His compositions explore how to portray modern urban environments and craft new alpine sounds that avoid cliches. Although he never mastered an instrument, he considers himself a diver for musical pearls and blending unusual sounds. So over 20 years of consulting experience has given a deep understanding of music supervision and storytelling. So we are going to delve into all those things. But now we're going to move over to Martin, who is a Swiss composer, producer, multi-instrumentalist, and music publisher. He composes for film, TV, ads, radio, and general media and production music. So some of his credits include work on TV and film such as Warrior, Fringe, Sleepy Hollow, and has also contributed to Melrose Place, Bring It On, and various Lionsgate films and MTV shows. In his own work, he shifted increasingly into music publishing and building production music catalogs and labels, and currently has 7, very cool, all under the umbrella Golden Rule Music. Okay, so I'm really excited to delve into all these projects you both have worked on because you've got an amazing experience behind each of you. So we're going to delve into all of that. But first of all, I really want to kind of delve into where it all began for you. So Beda, I want to start with you. So what first sparked your curiosity as a diver for musical pearls for unexpected sounds? What first sparked the curiosity for you?
Yeah, I was always really a passionate music listener and later on a collector as well. So, and it was kind of an escape room for me as well. The music, to dive into this and my daydreams or whatever with music. So it was a very important kind of accompanying me since very early times. And so I was really kind of interested in music. I bought a lot of records. I was going to record stores and listening, in these days when I was in the 70s. It was still, big thing to go in stores and listen to records and things. And so I discovered a lot. I collected a lot since then. And already then I was not only in the mainstream, of course, I was into it as well with Jethro Tull, Supertramp, Genesis, whatever it was, Neil Young. But beside it, I was always curious to find something special. And so this was kind of accompanying me the whole life since now.
Thank you. And Martin, also, where did it all begin for you? Because obviously you didn't start out composing for films, but that passion for music, when did it all begin? And what kind of artists did you, first really inspired you, or composers even?
I think that was just like many other composers, like in the teenage time. You start with some instruments and then kind of develop it further and kind of wondering how does that recording thing work? How does the production work and so on. So then I kind of found my way through to reel-to-reel tape into digital, which came up during that time, like late 90s. And so just kept going and kept wondering how things work and how things are. And here we are.
And so Study-wise, like, because obviously it takes time to develop the skills to be able to start, like, composing for TV and film and things like that. So, did you study at school and go on to, go to any specific, like, music school, or did you just literally spend hours and hours, like, practicing and mastering, instrumentation?
The later one. It's really, I'm basically self-taught. I had music teachers, so just private. And then to me, it's just, it's kind of you take the journey and ultimately, you need to find your own way anyways in that kind of field, in my experience. So, and there are many ways to do. So this was mine.
Yeah, of course. And that's very cool. Because I always find talking to a lot of musicians are either by ear or by sight, and some even both. But did you find that you are very much more you can listen to a piece of music and then able to recite and play that by memory, or you very much I need sheet music to be able to play?
Well, I think again that's kind of a personal thing. I learned both. So I learned to read music and got myself into theory, so musical theory, arrangement, counterpoint, that kind of thing. And there are, especially like nowadays, you can find almost everything online. Even now, you can find all university courses for any kind of topic. So I think it's the glory age of knowledge we're living in, or we have the access to. Let's put it that way.
For sure. And so, Beta, you mentioned that you played the drums a little bit, but you've got so far without even really needing to master it an instrument fully per se. Talk us through that side of things in terms of your musicianship.
Yeah, so I was, of course, I was really kind of interested and fascinated by live music as well. And someone in my family or close to the family was playing the drums, and it was impressive. And it's always in this age of being a teenager, you want to be seen, you want to be, kind of respected whatsoever. And then I thought, oh, drums. And I started with that, and it was an old drum, which was from a genius kind of drum constructor or drum thing in Switzerland. You could put the drums in one thing, then you can carry in like a bag, with the Giannini drums. But anyway, I get it, and it was fun, and I was doing it, but not really kind of disciplined, kind of learning. But I was playing in a school band, and then afterwards in another band, and then in the 80s I was doing an act. And I was starting in a hard rock band, which was fun. It was really, and we played a lot, and also we played a lot. We exercised a lot. And then we were really doing some gigs and so, and we were prepared for doing this. And then it was kind of by accidentally they asked us on a Sunday if you like to be as a supporting act of Iron Maiden.
Wow.
And it was happening because the other two guys in the band, they were kind of helping as a roadies for Free and Virgin and Good News. And so they knew we had a band, and the supporting act couldn't come, kind of weren't allowed to come into Switzerland whatsoever. So they called, on Sunday morning if someone has time in the evening. So, and we were at the end, we were probably the only one who were really kind of saying, yes, we are ready. But it was kind of a highlight, but not really starting the career there. But it's a good episode, and it was great fun, and it was really great to tell this story. But I was not really a good drummer. I from myself, and I think it wasn't my instrument.
It's enough if you're a rock star. You don't need to play drums.
Exactly.
It's all the storytelling. No, right. But it was great time, and beside it was really into the music. And then I started working as in a record store part-time. And there it kind of started because my really skill was, of course, I knew a lot of music, but my really skill was to respond to the people when they listen to something, Then I say, okay, if you listen to this and that, hey, try this and so, and not because I liked it, but because I really thought, hey, if people likes this, then it could fit with that. And there I was quite successful, and I just saw that I'm kind of with empathy and all that kind of, I can really figure out, I have this kind of skills, and then after a while, I discovered that a lot of people aren't coming, like, because we were close to university, and so a lot of students were coming, listeners, and then after a while, regular customs weren't showing up. And then I thought, okay, they don't have time whatsoever, but probably it could be an idea. And it was at the end of the vinyl phase, when the CDs were starting. Why not bringing kind of the whole thing to their home, kind of, a personal kind of consulting. And so I asked around, and so then I started with CDs, so a kind of a personal coach for music, and so this was kind of a start of this, and I called myself then Musikberater, which wasn't existing at all as a job description or something.
Really cool. And then, but one-to-one consulting, like, how did that go when you first started out?
Yeah, it's kind of, they could do an abonnement as a kind of that there is like 3 CDs a month, a year for 1 year long. And then I had to, of course, I made a kind of profile of this, say, what are you listening now? What are you interesting? And then if something new came in or something special, and I thought this could fit for this person, then I sent this 3 to them, and they could listen at home in very comfortable zone, and then to decide which they want to keep and which not. And then I had to to replace it in case. So I did this about 2-3 years, and beside this, I mean, it wasn't really kind of make a living out of this, but it was an interesting thing. And beside it, then I started for restaurants doing music, kind of consulting, and dance theater and fashion shows, things like that. I was doing a lot of DJing as well, but this was something I started in the 20s as well.
Nice. And we're going to delve into some of these projects in a second, but I just want to touch base with Martin. So let's discuss some of your first early roles in music, and what did that look like? So when you first started to enter the industry, like, what kind of roles did you take on, and what did that look like?
I basically started, I just was kind of exploring how can you make a living by music, because that's what I wanted. Everything else really didn't interest me that much. So I needed to find a way to make make money with music, else I would need to do something else. So I started with experimenting live. So I played in 2 bands. We had like 30, 40 gigs per year. So one was semi-professional, kind of, you got a regular income from it. And in parallel, I also tried out to kind of see, okay, studio is really kind of a cool thing. It interests me. And I started to writing songs. And because with the understanding, okay, I need to write songs so somebody can license it, and like an artist can get it out as commercial music. So the key point here is I didn't know about production music at all at that time. And so I'm not a lyricist, and you hear it, English isn't my native language anyways. So I collaborated with lyricists and top writers, and one of them actually then, so I just did arrangement like instrumentals, and one of these co-writers actually built or founded the production music catalog at that time. Didn't tell me about it, but one day I got an email saying like, hey, I got your music used in shows such and such. And I was like, whoo, these were demos, like rough mixes, how come? And so that's how I found out about production music, and just was starting to wonder, okay, there must be a market then for what I can actually do, instrumental music without lyrics and all the shebang around that. And so that's how it started, yeah.
And did you find that there was a lot of demand at that time? Because obviously, as we know, the industry has become very saturated, especially, with like a ton of new libraries popping up all the time, which we will again get into. But at that point in time, did you find there was a lot more demand, a lot less competition, so to speak? It was a lot less not saturated.
Here's a little anecdote for in this regard. So it's from a very successful and well-established, like in the 80s, company in the US. And when they started in the 80s, they were told, "Oh, you want to do a library? No, forget about it. The market is completely saturated." So that's 40 years ago,
Okay.
and here we are. So honestly, I think there always have been a lot of music, and so the digitalization just made it more easy as everything. And so it's the same question as people are saying, like, yeah, it's hard to make a living with music. It always
Yeah.
was. Yes, true. It is hard, and it always was. So to me, it comes down to kind of find out why you're doing what you're doing. So it sounds like a silly question. It isn't. So find out what really motivates you and why do you want to be part of that industry, and what exactly then is your core competence. Find it out. What exactly is it that you are good at just by nature? What comes natural to you? And kind of follow that and become better and better. And ultimately or occasionally it will lead you to a place where you're really, really good at. And that's, in my experience, is where you can excel and where you can find people who want to work with you, people who want to pay you for what you do. So that's kind of my approach.
I was getting the job at Swiss TV in 2005, and there I was all like Martin. I wasn't, so at the beginning I knew about library music, but I wasn't really using it in my so far career. And then I was really getting more into it, and we need a lot of, so we did a lot of collecting this sounds for our database in SRF. And so I learned more and more about the production music, about the good things, as about the quality or non-quality, the rubbish, and the kind of trash things. But it was kind of really a part of my job for new sounds always in the whole industry of the production music. So I really get into the production music more and more, and it was really helpful for our job. But on the other side, I learned that a lot of music we actually could use for our everyday jobs and topics and everything was missing. It was too much fictional, to theatre kind of dramatically, or just a little bit too much. And in my everyday job was mainly about non-fictional things. So that means not really entertainment, not so much TV reality. It was mainly kind of magazines of political things, health topics, and documentary films, news. So that means 90% of the stuff was kind of in the repertoire of the production music portal was kind of not really fitting. And so it was taking me quite a long time to I gave always feedbacks to the production music companies, but it was in the 2018 that someone said, "Hey, okay, why not you're doing concepting an own album to the alpine music thing?" Because the thing is that in Switzerland we do have a lot of reports and stories happening in Switzerland with Swiss protectionists, and therefore the location, the geographical kind of location that we are in Switzerland, and that this means a little bit alpine sounds, was always requested from our customers, from the report, from the journalists, but it wasn't really there. It was all cliche or too traditional whatsoever, but not in the modern kind of way. So this I was always asking for, kind of music which really fits into our region, but modern, not cliche, not traditional. And so I started with that, with these alpine sounds with other musicians. And the motif-based thing is that we are always telling stories in the TV and the radio podcast. And stories meaning that something is developing. It starts there with a mood. It can be the mood of neutral, kind of neutral or positive whatsoever. But then the story is changing, or the protagonist is developing something and is changing the mood, because otherwise you don't have to tell a story if it's always happy or always sad, then it's worthless. And therefore we really could have used a lot of motifs which are transforming, but no one was doing this and no one is really having this offered. And so that's why I was starting to think it would be good to do this, because this is a niche somehow, but with everyone I talk says that makes sense for them. And that's why I started with this motif-based concept.
Thanks, Beda. And so, Martin, how did it develop for you in terms of starting to land some of your first big projects? And how did that come about? Like, what kind of strategies did you use when developing new relationships? Because it's quite hard as a new composer starting out, and also to get established as a brand with a new production company, and getting clients to trust in your brand and trust in you as a composer to be able to deliver. What did that look like for you?
I would differentiate on what market segment you shoot for. So, for example, if you're going for commercials, advertisement, that's a different world than, for example, to make an extreme example, production music. In my experience, at least, like film scoring or advertisement music, that's way more kind of, it's more about the brand that you have and kind of being part of a certain social group too. And so that would be a different strategy then, and also kind of requesting a different set of personal skills too, or kind of what kind of person you are. And so basically, really, what I suggest is always don't try to be something you're not by nature. I mean, not that you can't try out. Sure, try it out. That's important to find out what you are and what you kind of really want to be and where you fit in. But don't try to fight uphill battles by I need to be part of industry or segment such and such. So rather find out where kind of flow things naturally, and the skills that you have just are the ones that are needed. Kind of it's about to match what you have and what the world is asking for in a specific field. So in my experience, when you meet that, it becomes easy, actually, or not that hard. You still need to work hard. That's no question. But it's way more fun, and it's not kind of a struggle anymore.
And did you find that a lot of your projects were first mainly coming from the European markets, or did you find that a lot of your projects are coming from the US side of things?
It was both. So I didn't differentiate it in terms of regional or territory wise. I just reached out and kind of was looking for that fit between the world, if you want, or the industry and myself, or what I'm doing. And so then to me, it's about getting into movement. So start doing things, and while you're doing it, you find out, oh, this works, oh, this doesn't, and so on. And so the next steps follows. I don't believe there's a big master plan, and then 5 years later, blah blah blah. That's all great stories, but in my world, or my experience at least, it's more about kind of start where you are today and then do the next step after the other.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I'm going to discuss and touch on now because it's impossible to ignore some of the industry challenges that we've all had face us, right? Like COVID. Then we had the writers' strike happen, and then obviously US had the tax side of things put on in terms of productions, and LA is, Hollywood's really kind of had its challenges, which has had a knock-on effect, like domino effect throughout the industry and through the different territories globally, and obviously with the AI coming into play, which all in all, shoots have been disrupted, budgets have really, really shrank, and projects have, had to either pause or be discarded completely or pivot completely in terms of locations or where they're shooting. How did you see that affect you in terms of commissioning of library music or demand for new compositions? And what strategies helped during this period? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, yes, these are all impacts. And again, I think it really depends on about what segment of the industry you're speaking. So, like in production music, what I'm doing, everything is kind of hitting it slow. So you do music today, you have a placement today, you see the money 18 months later. So it's the same effect now on the good side happens if something like COVID hits. So, for example, my income during that time was a little bit less, but not substantially, just because in production music you have a whole body of work, and then it kind of evens out whatever happens in the world. And so to me, that's a great plus side of this part of the industry. You're not so much dependent on did X in country see this or that. It just evens out because it's also international. And I always went for catalogs that had a great international distribution, which helps to further even out such events or developments or whatever happens in the world.
What about you, Beda? Did you see any knock-on effect?
Yes, also when I was working at SRF in the COVID time, I have noticed that the COVID has prompted some musicians to look for alternatives and parallel sources for income. And we were in the TV, we were not that kind of affected through that, but we could really feel that it's like the live musician, they were really hitting hard. And some of them, there is production music, why not doing it? So I had a kind of, because I just started with my project, so I could feel that, as I could see that there is a need or asking for, trying it. About the rest, it's kind of, because for me, I have already 16 albums out on different, thing where I was concepting it and involved. And so it's too less, as it's too less for really kind of seeing it on the market, connecting to what's happening in political and so. But I think it would be good to have this on the radar, kind of, because I think it will be, like Martin said, with a delay, but something like, beside AI can be really, it can be affecting production music as well, or the film industry, the TV budgets, whatsoever. And like in Switzerland, we have this discussion, if there is a cutting of the income of SRF, and this would affect, because then a lot of programs will be gone. And then of course it's affecting the income. And the more it happens like this in the world, then I think, it can be affecting. But it takes time to really realize what it's hurting or not.
And do you feel like there are opportunities for composers in unscripted documentary or brand content spaces while Hollywood is, going through its challenges?
Like, because I was doing, about accompanying more than 600 documentary films. And this is a different kind of music where you need this as like the fiction part. And I think crisis, like, can always be, because then there will be more reports about this region or this issue, and then of course it needs music. So I think you have to adapt a little bit. Where can be a field where you can fill, or where you can be the first, or say, hey, we have music for that, which is not that cliche and nothing, because I don't need, if I want to find music for Gaza conflict, and then I see a new album, Middle East, and then I hear the first track and it's called The Rise of the Pharaoh, and I said, where are we? It's 20, 40 years ago we had, or 60 years ago we had this kind of music, but no one is doing a properly kind of music where. So I think there is always a niche or a field which you can professionally filling. And
Yeah, of course. And obviously we can't not touch on the AI side of things. Martin, obviously AI can now produce music cues, and some companies are licensing AI generated library tracks. How do you view AI's role in the future of sync music? Do you think it's a threat to creative jobs, and how do you feel composers can leverage AI to enhance creativity and efficiently?
Well, nobody has the crystal ball. It's just and to me, really, kind of, it's technology. And if it's technological possible, it will happen in some way. The big question is, what does it mean for a particular field or a particular question? And there the speculations begin, of course. So currently there's a lot of questions, like the whole legal situation around AI generated music. That's entirely not clear. It's not copyrightable at the moment, or in the current legal situation. That said, of course, there are fields or scenarios where one could use AI music instead of human-made music, and can even commercialize it, such as, for example, like digital rights, or you can use it to monetize videos on YouTube and whatnot, and then get the money from the advertisement before, things like that. And I'm pretty sure this already happens since quite a while now. And so to me, it comes down to, keep going, keep moving in what you do, and try to become better in that field, and do something, kind of keep developing. I think it's probably, generally speaking, and that's for any other question too, it's hard for people who just like to do what they always did, the way they always did it. So I think it's like in many other fields. If you keep developing and keep being curious, I don't see kind of doomsday, the world is ending scenario, to be honest. So I'm not too scared, actually.
Yeah. Have you had any requests yet on anything custom to use AI alongside what you do?
Do you mean, not sure if I understand the question
So, like
correctly.
in a custom sense, because I've heard of some productions who are using AI, and composers are brought in just to oversee the final touches. You haven't had
Okay,
anything along
so
those
you
lines?
mean if I, as a publisher, got music offered that was generated by AI?
Or for you as a composer being hired onto a project where they're already generating AI, and you're brought in just to kind of bring in the final touches to what AI has already been
No.
doing custom
But
wise?
sure,
No,
then,
you haven't had to deal with
and
that.
I think
Yeah.
the question is still,
Yeah.
who has the expertise? You need a certain expertise for, especially like custom projects. And so you can't just cover that by prompt. You can write me a song about love, peace, and a beautiful countryside. Sure, but that's not an expertise. What a story needs, how a story being told the best way, emotionally transported, blah, 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 blah. All these questions.
And what qualities make a composer stand out when creating music, for Tonangeber, or recommending tracks for a project? Like, is it better to specialize as a composer in a niche, or to demonstrate, you know, versatility.
AI is generating, enormous quantum leap, is it? And it's generating an enormous amount of music, but generating. And I think it's not creating in the sense of producing something new, really new. That means if a composer, a human being, is still able to do something new, which the AI so far can't really do, it's. And I think if you're aware of that, then I think you can really, and I think this is also in the next topics, if you find your own signature, if you find something which really outstanding, it's not so, of course, then it can be copied once it's kind of published or out. But this is the quality, not the perfectness itself, but the own signature, the character of you, your life experience, and connecting and create something in the sound. And it's not important what you play, but how you play it, and how you let it sound. Then I think beside AI, it's always in this whole field of this universe of music. If you come along with a really nice piano piece, but it's kind of millions sounds the same, then it's difficult to be recognized. But if you have something special like Chili Gonzalez, with solo piano, it's nothing new, but something is special. Then I think then it's still there you can really stand up as out of the whole mainstream kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. And Martin, what does that look like to you? Like, what does that mean to you as something that really stands out? Especially because I imagine you probably receive a lot of submissions, right, for your libraries. And there must be every now and then that diamond in the inbox that you come across that it just really stands out. And what is that magic that you hear that really speaks to you, that you're like, I need to sign this?
I think these questions around that's basically, we're speaking of creativity and originality. Here, you need to define it. Else you're speaking for hours and it's still kind of cloudy. What exactly does it make? So in my experience, it's crucial to provide great ref tracks and clearly explain to the composer we're looking for that, and this element makes it special to me because of that. Otherwise, it's kind of just shooting into the woods and hoping a deer comes out, so to speak. So yeah, it's really about. I think it comes down to what I said before regarding your core competence, or kind of what is kind of really your thing, and usually that's the thing that catches my attention of somebody, because some composers kind of hit you up as a publisher and say like, hey, can I do music for you? And I say, probably. What's your thing? What are you about? Yeah, just tell me what you need. And I say, no, sorry, it doesn't work like that.
No, do your homework.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so, Martin, what kind of composers that you just absolutely love, or any particular score in general that you hear it and it just makes you melt every time?
Basically, I'm funny thing. I'm not good at names. I'm more about aesthetics. So just if aesthetics or a certain element or an idea hit me up, and that's the great thing on production music, you can then incorporate that basic idea or that basic element into your productions. To make an example, like Niels Fromm, somebody like 10, 15 years ago discovered little snippets of him, and then you started to hear it in production music. Basically, a core idea of a concept of him, and he, of course, then went all over the field in his composition, a lot of improvisation and kind of mood changing and tempo and whatnot and counter melodies. So that's all too much for production music. And so, but take a little snippet, 2-3 seconds, and do something with that. I think that's, or at least to me, it was a good method to kind of find such things and do interesting projects out of them.
And Beda, what about you? What are some much loved composers that really inspire you?
I have to say I'm a little bit allergic, with these orchestral things. That means, I mean, they're kind of, yeah, because I mean, it's great stuff. We don't have to discuss, and they're great composers. The problem is, and for me in TV as well, so everyone was asking for this orchestral. Then you have a story of, Mrs. Brown in a little village, and then they want to put some, like Hans Zimmer. And I said, no, sorry, it makes no sense, and it's not working. And it's kind of the holy grail for everyone to make orchestral sounds, which I understand. I mean, can't really, but to explain it, I just saw recently I saw a movie, kind of a portfolio part of a movie. There was from Iceland, really nice nature thing, really pictures and then there was this orchestral, really good made, fantastic. But for me, it's too much. I mean, you have already this really strong and impact pictures, and then you have also this thing. And for me, I'm really a fan of minimalizing, with really minimal tones and instrument sounds to make the same impact and to support what you see already, and not to fill all, competing, and just too much is just too much. And so, I mean, and Hauschka, like is when he started with this, prepared piano a lot, and then so he made his signature, and then it's kind of, I like this, how he started with all that. Or Cristobal Tapia de Ver, when I heard him first, I said, just, it's something different. It's just hitting me kind of, wow, what's happening here? So that's, for me, it's important that they have their own signature. Johan Johansson, I like quite a lot of him. And like the last, the Poor Things movie, the Jerskin Fendrix, with this, he really, did something different, which really fits, and it's not always the same kind of, tonality. So this is for me very important. Yeah, that less is more. That's because of my experience at TV, and of course, I mean, it's not, this against that, but I think both can work and are working as well and fitting.
You're listening to the Ultimate Sync Sessions with your host, Amelia McCloskey, where the world of sync meets opportunity. Stick around for more insider insights and stories straight from the heart of the industry. I hear from a lot of composers that really struggle, that just don't have, super talented, just don't have the credits yet for a lot of, say, TV networks or film directors to take a chance on them. What advice would you give to them to be able to break through that, to be able to, just have those opportunities and just have a chance, to be able to get those credits that they don't yet have, but without having to work on a ton of projects for free?
Well, again, I think it comes down, I keep repeating myself probably. It comes down, I wouldn't go the route for, in my experience, doesn't work or has its limitations, kind of getting out into the world, asking, I want this, I need that. So nobody waited for anybody. So, and that's not a bad thing. It's just everybody's busy with their own lives. That's just how it is. And so probably I'm not asking the first place, I want this, I want that, but rather do the opposite, introspection, and kind of find out what you're about, and kind of what do you have to contribute to the world, and find for that match. And to me, that's the more or the better way, instead of trying to catch attention besides a gazillion of other people who are trying to do the same.
Many are trying to do the same, yeah. And did you yourself, attend a lot of, say, film festivals, and any like conferences, to help start to actually meet, directors and brands, creative directors and things?
Yeah, in the custom music world, I used to be, but
Obviously, you
since
don't
I'm
need to
doing it,
now,
yeah,
but
right. Not nowadays, of course, because I'm now fully doing production
yeah.
music since quite a few years now. I used to go there, yeah, of course, and again, it's kind of, do you fit in there? It's each of these industry fields are its own world in my
Yeah.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so in production music, yes, I go to a couple of events, like in Los Angeles in 2 weeks. There's the PMC Production Music Conference, which is probably the largest one in production music, and I can recommend it for people who are want to be part of the production music world. So yeah, definitely, it's still, we are all people, and so personal talks and chats and kind of getting to know each other personal definitely is an advantage in many regards. Yes.
And Beta, what about you? Do you recommend or any particular festival or conference, especially for those still looking to establish and build relationships?
Yeah, I think generally networking is extremely important. It's always, if you're the person for it, then it helps, of course. If not, then it's a little bit difficult. But I think what I recognize always that everyone wants to go, into the film and kind of waiting that some director whatsoever is kind of, or music supervisor are seeing you and hearing you, but this is not so easy. I think if you're creating production music and gaining further experiences and skills like that, then you can really make kind of experiencing how it can sound. Then you will also become audible, visible, and you can generate attention through that. Who is this? Who made that? So I think this is helping for spreading, And if you're waiting, kind of, I don't do this and not in the TV, I want to do the big movie. It can happen, but it's kind of a lottery thing. But as Martin said, being open to new things as well, not on technically, but for me also musically, try things out. Don't stay in your shell, in your comfort zone. Try new things and sort out what is fitting for you and where can you find, and then you're helping to find your signature. Because I'm a little bit disappointed how the musicians are not really trying out or have the courage to do more, trying out new sounds, because then they're coming along with the same synth, the same guitar, and I think, okay, but it will help, to get attention if someone like, hey, wow, what's happening here? This sounds great, and what is it? And you know what? And I know as a person because, listening to so many songs, and then I keep switching them away if they're coming. But if something, I don't, it's hard to describe, but something say, hey, wow, what's happening here? Then the chance is bigger that you will be recognized.
True. And so obviously, given the volatility in the industry, like what long-term strategies should composers adopt? Like, should they perhaps prioritize owning their masters or diversifying revenue streams, or perhaps really building on their skill set and perhaps offering, like editing skills or moving a bit more into sound design, just to help bring in and diversify income streams, which, as you know, in this industry is really important, not to rely just on one source of income stream. What would you recommend, Beta?
Yeah, it's for me because I'm kind of new in the production, at least field. I think the more you have the skills in different things, then the more independent you can act. And you can kind of as well. It's easier to see what you want because quality is very important, and so you can, at least you have an idea of how it should. And then you can better argue. You can make your music. I mean, I think the more but still what Martin said at the end, you have to say where I'm good, what's my really skill. And, and of course, if you're only concentrating on just something, then it can be really tough. So if you're a little bit diverse in many ways, it can help. But the other thing is that you're not getting too much, everything but nothing, really.
And in terms of, say, as we know, like it's important to have that USP, isn't it? Like, what is your skill set? Like, what special gift do you have, or what further like creativity can you diversify in to get outside the box? But in terms of wanting to land more credits on more higher profile roles, do you think maybe perhaps it's maybe worth composers assisting other more high profile composers to build up those credits as well as a possible option?
Yes, definitely. So it can be a good strategy to do collaborations. And I did it a lot myself. So I did a ton of collaborations with all kind of people. And I'm still nowadays doing getting people like different composer in my roster together and say like, hey, you're a great beat maker. Hey, you're an orchestrator. And so let's do hip hop strings kind of thing. And yeah, that usually works pretty well. So I can highly recommend that. And again, it's about kind of having your specialty. That's the key point in collaborations, because otherwise, what's the point in collaborating? So kind of what do you bring in? What value do you add? It's about that question again.
Of course. And Beta, what about you on that? Do you think maybe it's also aside from the collaboration part, maybe even interning for, say, a high profile composer that's working on quite big projects so they can further get that leg up, so to speak, the ladder?
Yeah, I mean, I know some cases where it has worked or it can work. Uh, yeah, so I'm a big fan of collaboration anyway as well in whatever way, and to exchange and to and yeah, the thing is, I mean, a lot have some composers in, as their big kind of goal to reach, get there in the same music. And I think it helps to kind of how they work, how they get there, and how they do their music. But at the end, you have to find your own way. And I think it's always coming down to this, that you get recognized. You have to be, something has to be different. But it's, you can't kind of say this is now, you have to do it like this and then you're different. But it's a process, and yeah, and the more you have this, then I think the chance is bigger that you get, involved in bigger things. And the more you copy, kind of, oh, I have to be like this, or I have to do this as well, or another orchestral thing, it's not really helpful, from my opinion.
And you've worked on, wow, a ton, like 600 documentary projects, which, it's given you probably such a unique view of the relationship between music and visuals. Is there any particular project that taught you a profound lesson about scoring or about supervising, or any project in particular really that made it memorable and really stood out to you?
I mean, there were different things, and I learned, because when I started, it was kind of, as a music consultant, it was kind of the serial, sequences. Here is this and that, and then you say, okay, here is this mood and with this instrument. And more I found out, always have to have an overview. The story is small or is a documentary. Where we start, where are we going? Because then you have to develop the music for this, for this thing, and because if you start here, then it has to be ended somewhere else, and this helps to find the right music, to find a concept. Like, for example, I had to do find music for a short format for a documentary reporter, and it was about how you say, magersucht, eating problem. How you say in English? If you're not if you're really skinny. Yeah. And there were three young women who were portrayed in this thing, and one was kind of had this behind, this. Another was kind of all still in, but on a good way, and the third one was really, really, really in deep trouble, and in kind of not. And then the thing asked me, the journalist said, and the editor said, hey, we would have music which connect this. What do they have in common? And then, because I looked at the raw kind of the pictures they had in the beginning, and they said the mirror was always very important for all of them, because they are, looking into mirror, and how or not they covered it, and then I said, okay, then we can do, how is a mirror sound, like this glassy, this, and a little bit not transparent, but still, how is it, brüchig, fragmented as well, and a little bit thin, like thin, fragile and thin ice. We have to find sound which thing, then we have, so I think a lot of this, if you have this kind of capacity, then you can, think, okay, that's my solution to go into and find something. I think this can really help. And for me, it was really good when I was trained on association and things like that. But I think a lot of composers are not so capable for this. And I think if you try to more get into this topic, try to feel what's it's all about, and not what you think it is and how it must sound, but kind of, who is this, the more you can get into, the more you can find a way for starting your compose, your
your score, and getting into the deeply into the like the story and the characters that you're shaping.
Exactly, yeah. Or the, how sounds, salt, I mean, it's not sounding at all, but you have to find a solution. What's for you, and in this, of course, in this topic and this phrase where the report is, So I think this is kind of, because this is something when the briefing, and you notice probably, you do a briefing and then you see they didn't really take care of that. They didn't really read it, and I think this is very important. Read it and try to figure out what they want, and don't send something completely different in that, and that means this is very important.
And I think that's across the board. That is in all areas of sing and music, and whether that's composers, whether that's with brands, no matter what the brief is, read the brief and then reread the brief again, and then absorb the brief, sleep on the brief, and then work on it once you've really absorbed that, because I think that is the number one most common issues, isn't really not getting into the nitty-gritty and really deeply understanding what the brief is asking. So Martin, what's been a standout project for you that it's been really memorable for you, just to go a little bit behind the scenes of that, and why did it stand out so much for you?
Well, I would say basically creating some of the labels that I did. So there's a lot of conceptual work, and it's like composing just on a different scope, so to speak. So it's broader. You don't dive in so deep as a composer on the single piece of music and single questions in the arrangement, but it's kind of similar, like composing something, like what is the message you want to get across with? What does that mean in the graphical language? What is the branding? How should the fonts look like? Blah, 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 blah. So the whole question, and get that all on one point. And that's kind of an interesting journey.
And you mentioned also about, developing 7 labels. How do you manage all of that? Under one umbrella. I mean, talk us through the process of setting up, say, the first one, then leading on to 7. Like, how did it then lead on to that? And talk us through the different ones.
I really think it's there's no magic formula. It's really about basically you start doing something, in that case catalogs or labels, and then you find out kind of what are the challenges, or where do I spend a lot of time that isn't necessarily have a creative or a value based output, but it just needs to be done. for example, like formatting metadata. So you get spreadsheets in the size of Texas and need to manage them. And so to me, it always was, I don't like repetitive works anyways, personally. And so I quickly thought, okay, I build an infrastructure to handle that very efficiently and precise, actually. So more precise than a human can do it, because an algorithm, a machine, always does it in a certain way, and then just apply that whenever it makes sense. So whenever it's not a creative work, when it's about technical aspects, like the file name convention is this, and then 30 signs follow, that's a purely technical thing. That's nothing creative, or it doesn't add any value if you type in that by hand. So all those things, they really, really add up if you're building catalogs. And the more efficient you can handle it and the more effective, the more time you have to spend on the music and on the creative side, and to build relationships with distributors and whatnot. And so basically that what led to it, to answer your question, hopefully.
And what would be the main advice for anyone that's kind of looking to go down a similar route, based on the experience that you have, having done that and doing and managing that? If they want to start out doing that, what advice would you give them?
Again, I think the key points to me was basically finding out, there are a couple of things I kind of that come natural to me, like thinking about such processes, setting up such processes, like complex interdependent processes, like what happens if A1 influences C7, those kind of relationships. And so that's something I enjoy and that I think I can handle well. And so somebody may have their strength in a completely different field. So it's about finding out what works for you. And let's say you need to cover a certain area. If you want, for example, build a catalog, well, then find a partner who can cover that, for example. So again, collaborations. I can't do everything myself. So find the right collaborator or hire somebody and pay them for doing it.
Of course. And Beda, what about you? What advice would you give? Because obviously you manage your own production library, so.
Like, I'm a little bit opposite of Martin. I mean, I'm more the concepting, or more the, I'm not so a businessman, kind of, or analytic, really good in kind of analytic. I'm more kind of creating and associating things. And so, but as Martin said, I'm doing a cooperation with Music Sculpture. They are because when I started my label, I was sure that I knew that I can't then discover the world by myself. So I have to talk on somewhere, and with Music Sculpture, it's a great thing to do, because they saw that I fit for them with my concept, so I can concentrate me then finally on the kind of the content with and with a little help from others in some fields as well. Yeah, because I will never get to where Martin is the same labels, but it's not my goal as well. But I try to do a kind of on lower level, kind of try to do timeless quality. For me, timeless, I have to quality music which can fit in the field I was working in. I don't think my music is like for the American US market, so really fitting. It's more for the like European, a little bit, the national broadcast. It's more this kind of niche I probably go for, but just starting. I don't know if it really works, and so on. Like Martin said, and of course you have to start with a kind of a vision or with something, and then you have to analyze it, and you have to trust as well.
And also, yeah, hire those, as you say, to assist or partner with those to assist in the areas that are not your strengths, because we all have strengths and weaknesses. So just hire the ones that can fill in the weaker areas, I find, after running a couple of businesses in the industry over the past 20 years. How do you ensure your own work stays fresh and relevant? Or do you still feel it's really important to always offer, as you mentioned, Beta, that, timeless, as they say, like evergreens? How do you find that balance, especially, as we have like trends? Do you kind of follow the trends, or do you just really focus on, hey, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm sticking with? Or do you actually incorporate some trends as they come around? Whoever wants to go first.
I don't mind. Well, depends a bit what kind of trend one speaks of. So there are of course musical trends, like in popular style. They are moving quicker naturally, and it comes down to aesthetics and sounds used, or kind of how a top line is built in vocals. Like I have a vocal library too, and there it's kind of then also often a question of expertise. So you need, in my experience, to have the right composers and producers and singers in your roster. Else, you probably would try to micromanage people, which isn't probably a too good idea. So I think again, it's really having the right talent and understand it yourself enough to kind of can judge it or can give a basic direction. But I don't need to be, I can't actually be an expert to 100% in too many fields. So, and that's part of it comes down why I do ask people or kind of composers who approach me, well, what do you do? Kind of, I want to hear what's their specialty. I don't want to hear they're doing hip hop, but basically are a guitarist with a rock background. Then that's not of much interest to me then.
And Beta, what about you?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of because I know, so starting with that label, and I think I have to first establish a brand, because one thing I wasn't really happy over all these years, that all production music and all labels are kind of doing everything and the same a little bit, generally spoken. And it makes no sense that I'm jumping into that as well, because I'm a little bit late and kind of, but I think I have to find a niche which can be, which can be a little bit successful, hopefully, but still kind of branded. If we need music for this, because I was really missing it. I only had kind of one label over all these years, but I knew if I have a kind of commission for this or that topic, then I go there to look. And this was very, very rare. And I think if I can establish a little bit in that field, then I think I hope, but it's still it's kind of have to prove it, I think what my really thing is probably is that I was working at the really front, 20 years and did a lot, so I know what is working, what's fitting in this field, So I try to use this experience to create music, and with my vision, with my thing. But if it will be really successful, and I don't know yet.
And Martin, what's the biggest thing across your whole career? Biggest lesson that you've learned?
Keep learning. I don't think there's a single event. There are many, many, many. You, as an entrepreneur in any kind of field, or if you do startup or kind of build your own company or start with something, you will make many mistakes. Despite that you try to avoid them, you still will make mistakes and learn from that. So I think that's just part of the journey. And so I think, it's the important thing again is to kind of keep being curious, wonder why are things, or why is this and this not. And every now and then you get onto something that kind of you didn't know before or didn't have on the radar for some reasons. And so it's basically like life in general.
And Beta, if you could go back to your younger self, knowing what you know now, because you're still enjoying and have had such incredible projects. 600 projects is insane. Really, really cool. But if you could go back to your younger self starting out, what would you say? What advice would you give?
A little bit the same as Martin said, because I mean, the question, what with that knowing and experience I have now, of course, I would have done things differently, but I'm now here and being what I am because of that, you know. That means, it's always be curious was good, and you know, sometimes I would, of course, if I would have some informations before and would have recognized them as important, then I would have done it differently. But like learning and trying out and like exchanging with Martin, because we have different approaches, but I think this is very helpful because I can learn from him and reflect myself. You know what? Maybe it's very important to not in your own bubble the whole time, to some that you really are discussing, and we don't have to agree, but okay. And I think this is the only thing I think. Keep on going with this, because life is always falling and standing up. With that, it's kind of sorting out. Life is sorting out. You don't know really what you want for sure, but you learn what you don't want anymore. Is my kind of learning in my life, sorting out. And okay, you can do some mistakes. You can do it once, twice, but you know, after the third time, you say, okay, I don't want to make this mistake again. So I think, it's always that's the important thing.
Yeah, just jump in on that topic. It's often easier to define what you not want.
Exactly.
I think that's probably the key here. That said, I do believe it's important to find out what you want, because otherwise, where do you head to? In what direction? Else, it's kind of then still shooting into the blue to make it as an extreme example. But yeah, I would just add that.
Yeah, thank you. And if anyone wants to find more information, Martin, about your libraries, or perhaps want to be considered to be represented by one of your labels, where would they go to?
They found all the labels at www.goldenrulemusic.ch. So that's where you find kind of an overview, and you're welcome to contact me just by email. Best is to send a link to a streaming page, kind of like SoundCloud, Disco, whatever you have, so I can just hit it and instantly listen without downloading and blah blah blah.
Of course.
And send what you're good at, kind of your core competence. That would be my point.
And how many tracks because you don't want to end up with 100 tracks in one playlist. How many do you like to receive? Because it's different for, each person. So
yeah, I would say anything between like 3 and 6 tracks is not a problem in my experience.
Perfect. And Beda, what about you? Where would people go to find out more about you, or perhaps to be considered, perhaps to be represented?
You can go to my website, and there under production music, Tonangeber and production music, and soon under music sculpture, and then motive works, the first albums. And if they're interested in the kind of approach I have in this more modular, motive-based thing, then they can contact me straight on and send me things, because I think they have to be a little bit prepared to be open for new grounds in that field. But then if they're curious and if they're, then they would be great to contact me straight on. Yeah.
And what's your submission type guidelines?
That's for me. It's good, or send me the stuff you think it's really something special but not experimental, kind of, which is really outstanding, or then it's good. And then 3-4 tracks wherever it makes sense. It can be Dropbox, Pickup Disco.
Thank you so much. It's been really insightful, and I've actually learned a lot just being on the podcast with you both. Thanks for tuning in to the Ultimate Sync Sessions with Amelia McCloskey. To learn how Ultimate Sync Access can connect you with new opportunities, visit ultimateSyncAccess.com. Subscribe for our monthly episodes and follow us on socials for more sync insights. See you next time.